Welcome to CAN TV 21 Hotline. Let's talk etiquette. I am so pleased to be back with you once again to give you an awesome subject that I'm certain you would greatly appreciate. My name is Nathan Wright, and I'm the Executive Director of the Etiquette Foundation of Illinois. So please give me a call at 312-738-1060. And as you can see, I'm all alone today. My wonderful, dynamic co-host, grandson, graduation is tonight. So naturally she would be there as opposed to being here. But she will be missed. However, we're going to continue on. She will return next Wednesday, and she would be, of course, sitting right next to me as my co-host. But what are we going to talk about today? This is a very, very interesting subject, and I'm sure all of my viewing audience will greatly appreciate it. And this is a class that we did at one of the local high schools just past semester, because we wanted to introduce them to a number of ways of thinking about the subject of etiquette. But let me put it up on the overhead so we can get started, and then you can join me with a phone call, and that way we can all participate. Need to do some adjusting. How about that? Let me see, can I do a little zooming on this? There it is. Yes. Now, the topic for today is the etiquette of citizenship. Question: is U.S. citizenship a legally binding contract? Yes or no? I'll read that again, the question. Is U.S. citizenship a legally binding contract? Yes or no? And I'd like for you to give me a call if you think you would like to try to answer that question. But it is a contract. If you didn't know, you're born under contract. You receive a Social Security number. That's your number for life, part of that contract. And you receive a birth certificate, proof of birth. That's validating your birth and the value of your contract. So citizenship is a contract. It's a set of rules and regulations that bind you to the laws that govern whatever country you live in, but since we're talking about this country, it binds you to adhere and to obey the laws of this nation. And that contract requires you to pay income taxes. It also subjects you to all the legal laws of the country, be they civil or criminal laws. In other words, you are giving your government, you have agreed to give your government the right to arrest you, to charge you, to fine you, to tax you, to do all those things that the government has the right to do based on that contract you have with them. Of course, the government is also required to provide certain things for you as their obligation to you as a citizen, like safety, like perhaps fire safety or protection, like the ability to move around freely within the confines of the country without having to leave the country, because the country itself is kind of like I don't want to call it a prison. It's kind of like you're confined here until you receive permission from the government to leave, which that means you have to apply for a government passport. And so that if you want to leave the country, you would have to have that document in order to be able to leave the country. So you're kind of like required to have it in order to leave the country. So it's not actually a big prison, but it's kind of like you're confined. And so you have to get permission from your government in order to leave the country. And most other countries have all agreed under those UN agreements to require you to get permission from the country you choose to travel to to be able to enter that country. So there's a lot of legalities involved with this contract you have with your government. So what are we going to talk about today on this show regarding your citizenship? And what we did at the local school, we wanted our students to know about what citizenship really is a contract of and about. So I'm going to read here a little more for you. Should the rules of social behavior governing American citizenship be taught in the public schools? I'll read that again. It says, should the rules of social behavior, etiquette, governing American citizenship be taught in the public schools? Now that's an interesting question because our students said, what? What is that all about? Well, the reason we were there teaching etiquette is because those young people do not know much about the rules of etiquette. And the rules of etiquette are the rules put forth to determine what the relationship, social, political, business, philosophical relationship is between members of its citizenry. And so etiquette is kind of like the glue that binds all of us together on a basic formula of how to conduct ourselves more like in public. So this is what citizenship really involves. And the relationship of etiquette to that is you have a set of rules of behavior that is intended to create a sense of harmony and mutual respect for one another as a citizen of the same country. And so then we go about our daily lives presenting ourselves in accordance to those rules, whether it's just simply speaking to a person, hello, how are you today? Oh, wonderful, I'm glad to hear. And so that's a basic concept of etiquette, is to be gracious, is to be polite, is to be considerate and or courteous to your fellow citizen. It is what creates families, communities, states, cities, nations, and the country. I have a caller. Caller, you're on the air.
Yes, Mr. Wright. And
yes, Steve.
Yes, and it is a great day.
Yes, it is.
Listen, you brought up an interesting contract of etiquette. I'm assuming since the CPS is run by the politicians, I don't think it's probably is a binding contract because it's not in their curriculum to teach etiquette, to teach kids to be better than what they are now. So I think what needs to be happening is people need to protest or get in on the referendum and when you voting, should this be a curriculum in public schools?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I've been talking all day, so normally
I'm glad you called, Steve.
When evening comes, I'm kind of really tired with my voice, my vocals.
That's okay, Steve.
Kind of weak, but again, and go back to if you're born in the United States of America,
yes,
like you said, birth certificate, social security, all of the proofs that you were born here. But later on in life, they go to war, come back, and you could be a Hispanic, and next thing you know, ICE want to go into the family, disrupt it, and send you back to your other country where you came from. I
Yes.
don't think that's right. It's the way of politicians, and some way, somehow, we need to. People need to get more interest in things, and
yes,
say something, but we are a society, we just be quiet. And that don't make no sense. God
No.
gave us a mouth, you're supposed to
Yes.
speak. He give you ears, you should be able to hear things. He give you a brain, you need to think things. We
Yes.
have people such as you come out and teach us. You're a good facilitator. People need to look at the news, read the newspaper, talk to people, and you will learn a
Yes.
lot of things. But again, that's my thinking.
Oh, that's good thinking. Very good
I
thinking.
mean, I ain't gonna try to make someone do something they don't want to do, or make someone think about something they don't want to think about. But listen, if you don't, just look in the news, people shooting and killing people for no apparent reason. Do you think that is civilized for us to be killing and then don't want etiquette in your school? Something's wrong there.
Something is.
Listen, let me get out the air, Miss Wright, so
Thank you,
I
Steve.
can hear your response.
Thank
And
you.
I'm sorry if I offended someone that said
You
something
didn't offend
wrong.
me.
But we need to think more and
Absolutely.
act better.
Absolutely.
So let me get out there so I can hear your response. And thanks for taking the call today.
Absolutely, Steve. Absolutely. You're one of our special callers. But I think you may remember some shows back, we did a show on, can't remember now what the actual title of the show was, but we talked about public education and what are the things that was once in the school no longer being in the school. I can't remember the exact title of the show, but we talked about the removal of civics as part of your education, the removal of music as part of your basic education, art as part of your basic education, and those things, home economics was part of your education. And of course you had to learn the preamble to the Constitution of the United States. At one time when I was a young person, they had prayer in the school, okay, and Pledge of Allegiance in the school. So you see how ancient I am. Go back and we talk about those basics that the government school, we call it public school, but it's really a government school. And so all of those things, Steve, as you remember, if you're old enough, saying Pledge Allegiance, that was done every day in the schools. And the reason for saying those things or repeating those things is because you're pledging your support of your country, your nation, as a citizen. And of course, prayer in the school was done primarily because we are a primary Christian nation. And so that was part of our education in the school. And you may remember you had to learn the preamble to the Constitution, we the people, in order to form a more perfect union. And so that whole concept is no longer part of our young people's education. We the people, in order to form a more perfect union. See, so if a young person is not on that mindset in terms of their values, then they're going to be capable of doing almost anything because they don't have a core appreciation of what it is to be part of this nation as a citizen. And what do those obligations all involve? And so if they're lacking that kind of education, you can expect any kind of savagery or antisocial or illegal behavior to come from them. They are being produced The society now is no longer that unity of community, of family. When a family moved into a community, you remember, Steve, they were welcome. A welcoming party would come to that community, from that community and visit your house and welcome you in the community. We talked about block parties, I think, on a show not too long ago, and the value of unifying as a block, where each of the homes and the residents who live in those homes came together as a community and set standards of behavior for the residents of that community. It may be cutting your grass on a regular basis. It may mean you can't have a junk piece of car sitting out there for 6 months. It may have all kinds of rules of behavior for that community. So those things have been watered down and are no longer valued. So that's what education of what it is to be a citizen and what are those obligations really constitute. If you understand that, you're least likely to do something illegal because you now understand the rules that bind you to that contract. So I'm going to put up on here a little more so that we can add that to the conversation. Okay. Here it says, teaching the rules of behavior in accordance with our citizenship, social, and legal obligations should be a requirement to graduate from elementary school. Yeah, I think that's so important for our young people to be able to understand the importance of that, because now you land an educational foundation for that child to appreciate what it is to be a citizen of this country and what their obligations are for them to go out in the world, in public, and conduct themselves in a fashion that's consistent with those values. And that's what's really missing in public education or any other kind of education in this country today. And I know you remember, Steve, we did a show on dumbing down. This process is pretty well known by most who care to really look into it. You can go on your computer and just Google dumbing down of America. And you will see the whole history of this whole movement towards making us dumber, ignorant, and un-American as we can think of. And when young people are shooting and killing each other, that's very un-American. It's not the Wild Wild West when we were a lawless nation. We got a caller. Caller?
Yes, Mr. Wright. You brought some very important things, what you just said. And I do remember. I'm 70 years old. I remember when I was going to school, we went to operas in public school in 7th or 6th grade, something like that. Mm-hmm. We went to the museum. We went to culture. When you was in 8th grade, you had to take the Constitution test.
Right.
You went to Springfield. You went to Washington to see how things are operated. And now they don't do these things.
No more.
And it's just, see, again, it's too much politics in everything here. Some things don't have no business where politics should run the show.
Absolutely.
Everything they have a Chicago Board of Education, but yet and still the city tells them what to do and what you can't do.
Right.
So again, only thing we doing was this. We stopping the kids from birth.
Yes.
I mean, they're not being taught nothing at home.
Yes.
Then they go to school. What are they being taught? They're still teaching about Christopher Columbus. And now they say Columbus didn't discover America. How can you discover something when someone else is there?
Right.
So again, the things that they teach us. We need more people such as you and your friends to teach. But
Absolutely.
I think sometimes they don't want to.
No,
You should be
that's
you should
what
be
I have
called.
concluded, Steve. You're right. They don't want them to
You
learn
should
these things.
have calls all day. It should be an hour show, but no one don't want to talk.
I
No
know.
one don't want to call. No
Right.
one don't want to listen.
Right.
But again, I always tell you this: if you say one, you did your job.
Yes. Thank you,
Again,
Steve.
thanks a lot, and let me hear your response.
Yes. Thank you, Steve. Steve is absolutely right, and I appreciate him calling in and adding those few things that I had actually overlooked. I went to opera, the museum, science and industry, natural history, the art institute as an elementary school student. They would take us out to lunch and dinner so they can expose us to some of the finer qualities. And in fact, we went to and this was when Marshall Field was kind of biased and prejudiced as a store, but they allowed us to go up to the Walnut Room and have lunch as an elementary school student. And yes, Steve, I took the trip to Springfield and to Washington, and that was as memorable like it was yesterday. And it was so impactful and so influencing on us because you did the same trip, and it meant something because now we could identify with what this country represented. Whether it was miseducated in terms of its history, but it wasn't miseducation in terms of its values. And that's where we connect with the language. We speak a foreign language, it's called English, and those values are part of the English culture that was brought from Europe, primarily England. And so those are the rules of the game once we are born into this world. And if they teach you the rules, you would be an outstanding citizen because now you understand what your obligations are as a citizen and the things you have to do to contribute to the well-being of this nation, of your family, of your community, of your town or your city, and this nation. So that's one of the things that is so important to us here at the Etiquette Foundation, to express, to enlighten, to help others understand really what etiquette is as it relates to this entire country, this entire society. Our values are all interwoven into what etiquette represents. So let me go. Thank you, Steve. I appreciate that second call. You really pointed some things out that I totally agree are very, very valuable, and you were able to bring it to us. Let's see if I can read this last part here before we're off the air. Okay, let's see here where we at. If a citizen volunteers, I'm sorry, I don't have my reading glasses on. If a citizen violates a civil rule or criminal law and is subject, and is judged to be guilty, they are, I don't have my glasses. I'll stop. I see now. I'm not able to read it. I need my reading glasses to see the tiny print, and I'm straining to do that. But you get that message there. It's about the fact that as a citizen, you're subject to all of the rules of the society we live in, civil rules as well as criminal rules. And it's a two-way street. It's one, you do it right, you are rewarded. You do it wrong, you are punished. And so this is something that should be taught in the elementary schools as well as in the high schools. Our young people need to understand that clearly. If they do, they're least likely to do something that will end up in penitentiary or do something that would take another person's life. The things we're witnessing today is retrogressive in every form and every manner. And we have to blame the government, especially the schools, the public schools, for not continue to teach the kinds of things that our young people need to know and understand. So this is what this show is about. Citizenship. Okay? And that's an important part of our reality, and I will continue to promote great citizenship and advise and counsel all of my young people to be the best citizen, because you are under contract, the best citizen that you could possibly be. And if you begin to think about that and what those obligations require of you, you're going to do very, very well. And that's the rewards. Rewards and or punishments. If I speed in my car and get stopped by the police, that's a civil fine. They punish me by taking some of my money for violating a traffic rule. And, $150 or whatever, that's quite a bit of money that's out of my pay or income to pay for violating that rule. So that's what the government is all about. It's a rule-based government. And part of their primary role is to govern over its citizens so that peace and order, this is what they want. I want it, the government wants it, peace and order, and in pursuit of happiness, and all those other wonderful things that you can realize in this country if you understand exactly what are your obligations as a citizen. And please, let me put up our information before the show ends, and I'll remember the next time. Normally, Madam Selma, she reads very well and had good vision. She would have been able to read that last line there, and unfortunately, I'm not prepared to be able to read that for you today. But I think you got the message. Okay, here, I'd like for you to reach out to us. Call us at 312-473-2942. I'll repeat that number, 312-473-2942. And if no one answers, please, please, please leave us a message. You can also reach us by email, and that is at info@efoi.org. I'll repeat it, info@efoi.org. And you can go to our website, www.efoi.org. Visit our website, see what's on there. You may find some very, very interesting things. Plus, you can always reach out to us. We have tons of a curriculum available for you to use in your church, in your social center, in your community. I mean, literally tons of curriculum on a whole host of subjects. We have about 40-some once upon a time stories, starting with kindergarten age children all the way up to 8th graders. I'm sure some of you all may remember those wonderful once upon a time stories. But these are based on etiquette, social interactions and social relations, and some of the conflict that grow out of our young people having to interact with one another. So a great social education would be in the form of a story, a short story. So ask us. We'll be happy to email it to you. If you'd like to have whatever age that you're interested in, these are short 4 or 5 minute stories that you can read aloud to your students. And it's an excellent way to educate those young people in how to solve conflicts and disagreements, and all about what it is to be a bully and how to avoid being bullied. So, I mean, it's a whole host of things that would be just excellent for your programs, wherever that may be in church or in your schools. Well, with that said, I want to thank you for tuning us in, and I want to say good evening and have a wonderful rest of the week.